Thursday here on the Locked On Network, and you know what that means. It is time for another crossover Thursday, an AFC East matchup that once upon a time had a lot on the line. Maybe not so much this time around. We got you covered here, Locked On Network.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Network. I'm Kyle Crabbs of Locked On Dolphins, joined by Joe Marino of Locked On Bills. You may also recognize us from sharing the mic on Locked On NFL Scouting. It is your teams every day here on the Locked On Network. We appreciate you all for tuning in and making us one of your daily listens. Your first daily listen, here's hoping, is not Locked On NFL Scouting today. It's this crossover Thursday edition between Locked On Bills and Locked On Dolphins. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 on lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Joe Marino, esteemed colleague, welcome to a crossover Thursday here on the program.
It's an absolute honor to share the mic with you, Kyle Crabbs. I think this is our, over 3,000 podcasts together, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's probably going to show here on this because my hair is down. It's casual Thursday here on Locked On Dolphins for me. As we were in evaluation mode, very different psychology to what Buffalo has going on. Trade deadline just kind of came and went. The Dolphins sold Jalen Phillips. The Bills stood pat. What are some of the other storylines in your mind, whether that's deadline related or kind of we've seen the emergence of the New England Patriots in the AFC East as kind of the new second team that's contending. That's been Miami for the past few years. What's the big storylines right now in Western New York?
Well, they didn't do anything at the trade deadline, so that's interesting. And like a lot of the other contenders across the league, they didn't do anything. It was an interesting trade deadline from that perspective, especially when you consider the Bills and some of the recent injuries they've had on the defensive line, and Michael Hoyt and Ed Oliver, and the Bills' pass rush has really looked as good as it has, I think, under Sean McDermott. You lost a couple of key pieces. You didn't replenish any of that. Maybe some of the thought there is you get some players back healthy, like a TJ Sanders, like a Daquan Jones, and see where that can take you. But ultimately, I think the biggest storyline for the Bills entering this game is just kind of what they've shown coming out of the bye. They were really shaky the last two games into the bye against the Falcons and Patriots. They lost both of those games. They had plenty of warts on defense. The passing game looked really, really unsettled. And I guess it was just the Bills' annual lull that they have. They've lost 2 in a row every year since 2020. And they kind of come out of it and start to play their best football. And I think you saw that against Carolina, where the run game really came to life. And defensively, they really feasted on a backup quarterback in Andy Dalton. And you're wondering, all right, well, is this just first game out of the bye against Carolina, or is this kind of a tease as to what this team can be? And then they played tremendous against Kansas City on both sides of the football. But the most important part of that to me was how the passing game looked against Kansas City. Josh Allen with the best completion percentage of his career, and actually setting a Bills record at 88.5%, which I think speaks to it. And the completion percentage over expectation was really, really high. And you saw the efficiency that the Bills like to have. They get the ball out of Josh's hands quick at times, but also some down the field stuff where Josh was 3 for 3 on deep throws. He was, I think, 5 of 6 on intermediate throws. So it all kind of came together. You saw some explosive elements to it. And it's about continuing to stack this and prove that this is the type of team that they can be next up on the road here in Miami.
The big story for Miami, we have well established on Locked On NFL Scouting that there is a 1-game fired head coach bump. We get to find out if there's a 1-game mutually parted ways GM bump, because this is the first game for the Dolphins since making what was a football operation decision that I think a lot of Dolphins fans just refused to believe was a possibility was going to happen. They mutually agreed to part ways with Chris Grier Friday after the Thursday game to open Week 9. And that obviously doesn't change anything about the X's and O's or the building. But I do think it puts everybody on notice that there are sweeping changes coming at the very tippy top of your football organization. And I think that's really a kick in the pants that I think Miami needs, because, you know, this is a team that's kind of flatlined in some ways with their football operation. They come out, they play really inspired ball against Atlanta, and they come back against Baltimore the following Thursday and do very few of the things that helped create this successful offensive game plan that breathes so much life against Atlanta. They didn't do. And it's an evaluation window that now formally starts for Mike McDaniel, who it sounds like the team wants to work out, but it comes with the caveat that the team has to win. And, oh, well, you're 2-7. The team's really not winning. So it's not just keep winning, Mike, because you're not winning games. So they moved Jaylen Phillips at the trade deadline to Philadelphia. So now they're down one of their best pass rushers, arguably the pass rusher that has given Buffalo's blockers biggest fits has been Jaylen Phillips. So, like, from a matchups in this game perspective, Chop Robinson's in concussion protocol, but that happened on Thursday. There's extra time. I would expect he'll be ready, but you still have Matthew Judon, who you did not move on from. Now, maybe they cut him today. He was another name that was in that coagulation in names as potential trade deadline moves. Maybe the Dolphins, I'd be surprised. We're recording this on Wednesday morning, especially because they moved on from Jaylen Phillips and they need the bodies in the room. But just everybody kind of being put on notice that there are big changes coming. The football operation from the top down. What you do the rest of the way is the resume in which those people are going to determine who deserves to be here, who's not going to be here. And we're going to see how they respond with a little bit of extra prep time for a team in Buffalo that has had their number for 7 years.
I think it's really fascinating to consider, what do we get from Miami? Excuse me. What do we get from Miami in this game where there is a rest advantage? There is the fired general manager. There's urgency. Obviously, Mike McDaniel's coaching for his job. He's still there. Yep. And how does the team respond? I can see it going a number of different ways, but it's also a divisional game. So two teams that know each other well. And I'd imagine you'll get an inspired effort from Miami. But I think there's some variables there that complicate, what does that even mean? What does that look like? I guess we'll find out on Sunday.
Right. And there's a lot of matchups that I think can be different than the first time these two teams played one another, which is what we're going to get into next here on this crossover Thursday. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, Locked On Bills, Locked On Dolphins. We get you covered. We're getting into the matchups next. Make sure you guys stick with us. You guys have probably heard the saying. We subscribe to it here at Locked On. You got to look good to feel good and play good. The problem is most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They look sharp, but they feel stiff, hot, high maintenance. That's why there's Mizzen & Main. Mizzen & Main takes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and they have perfected it since. Joe was just telling me in the pre-show he had an event, and he rocked some Mizzen & Main. He said it didn't even feel like he was wearing pants. And there's nothing worse than, like, tight waistline on dress pants, right?
Yeah.
Because they traditionally, like, most of them sit maybe a little bit higher than what, like, your gym shorts would. So to have that performance fabric element with menswear is a total game changer. Right now, Mizzen & Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com with promo code LOCKEDONNFL20. That's Mizzen, spelled M-I-Z-Z-E-N, and Main, M-A-I-N.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL20 for 20% off. If you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen & Main stores in select states. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, when you are right, you can get yourself paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action than right now. If you haven't tried it, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. You pick more or less on at least two player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup. You can play your Prize Picks games anywhere that Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. If one of your players leaves early with injury, the injury reboot can save your lineup from a loss. And there's a new stacks feature that is a game changer as well, where you can make more on, for example, Steph Curry for points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, Joe. The last time we played, it was week 3. The Bills had a bunch of guys hurt and injured on the defensive line and suspended on the defensive line.
Yeah.
The last time these two teams played, the Dolphins had never put 6 offensive linemen on the field in the Mike McDaniel era. Both of those things have changed. We're going to start for matchups here.
The matchup that I'm really interested in is a player that wasn't available in week 3 for the Bills, and that's their number 1 pick, cornerback Maxwell Harrison, against Jaylen Waddle, who, obviously Jaylen Waddle is the number 1 receiver for the Miami Dolphins with Tyreek Hill out of the equation. And obviously some rumblings that some teams might have been interested in trading for Jaylen Waddle. They keep him. And Maxwell Harrison is now entering his 3rd game off of an injury. Started the year on injured reserve, came back against Carolina, and then played some. And then he ramped up even more last week against Kansas City. And in particular was the answer for lining up against Xavier Worthy. And Harrison absolutely held his own against Worthy, being able to carry him vertically and match steps. Intercepted a pass when targeting Worthy. He was targeted 4 times and didn't give up. He gave 1 catch, and it was kind of like a late game, just come up and make a tackle type situation. And the week before against Carolina, he had a big impact tackle. He defended the run extremely well. And so there's been some nice signs from Harrison. And, the Bills' defense throughout the years has been pretty speed deficient in the back end in particular. And they finally have a guy that can match up with the Waddles or the Worthies or guys like Zay Flowers for Baltimore. Garrett Wilson's been a player that's given the Bills some challenges. And so I'm really interested to see this first divisional test for Maxwell Harrison, who you'd have to think players like Jaylen Waddle were in mind when the Bills picked him. And now we get to see that first head-to-head opportunity.
Yeah, because Waddle had a lot of success in the first matchup with these two teams, particularly running stuff outside the numbers, right? Because that's what Buffalo is so willing to give up against Miami is, hey, Tua, we're going to clog your preferred area of the field, make what we perceive to be more low percentage throws. Some of them you're going to have to drive outside the numbers and hit those throws with consistency. And Waddle did have success in that area the first time these two teams played. It was Tyreek Hill in a few big spots, kind of running figure 8 around guys in coverage when they hit some of the middle of the field stuff. That I think that was it the end of first half possession where he caught the ball 2 yards short of the sticks and doubled and looped back around and came back inside. And that was Tyreek Hill's touchdown catch in the red zone. The low red zone was another rep like that. Not getting those reps, but Waddle has been one of the more productive receivers since Tyreek Hill has gone down. He's been, which I have felt he was for a long time, which is a number 1 capable receiver. And the Dolphins had offers for him at the trade deadline. They wanted a 1 plus a player plus another asset, and they didn't get that offer. And it's like Jaylen Waddle's time to shine and kind of show and remind, especially in this matchup with no Tyreek Hill against this opponent and a player, as you mentioned, in Maxwell Harrison, who was picked probably with coverage in mind. Really interested to see, are you going to take what Buffalo continues to give you? Are you going to try to force him into a lot of those middle of the field throws and trust Waddle to make them and trust Tua to throw them and make good decisions? And they kind of did that down the stretch. And then it bit you in the rear end at the very end of the game the last time these two teams played.
Yeah,
so that's really interesting for me.
We came out of that game and the Dolphins' third downs, they converted all of them. It felt
like 10 of 15, I think.
Yeah, it was 10 of 15. And so we'll see how those strategies work out this time around.
Well, if they're smart, they're going to run the ball more, and they'll probably lean into the heavy stuff because that's where I think the Dolphins' offense has been at its best, when it looks a little bit more like the Shanahan-y stuff. It's just been a trap for McDaniel at times with game scripts, and you go down 14-6 and you act like you're down 3 touchdowns. And that's a worry that I have for Miami in this matchup if Buffalo has some early success. I think when Buffalo has the ball, the big matchup is the guys on the second level and kind of the spine of the defense fitting the run against James Cook, where obviously Buffalo, they go heavy all the time. They've got a quarterback threat run game. They've got an explosive play runner in James Cook. Dolphins defense was an absolute mess the first time these two teams played. It was all new defensive linemen on the interior. The backers couldn't figure out where to fit. They were having a shuffling revolving door at nickel. The safeties were not settled into spots. And the James Cook did he have 100 rushing yards in the first half? Because if he didn't, it felt like it, right? Is it a lot of early production in the run game? And then they settled down, kind of felt like they found some things in the second half of that game. And that was the first time all year it felt like Miami had that. But Jordan Brooks, Tyrell Dotson, Dante Trader, Minka Fitzpatrick, who also they had some business conversations with, didn't facilitate any moves that got done and finalized, obviously. Those guys fitting to prevent explosive plays, particularly to James Cook, I think is the matchup that is the must stop if you're Miami to give yourself a chance to maybe score enough points to win a game, which I think you're going to need to score what they've only scored one time this season to win a game, and it's always been the magic number against Buffalo, which is 30 points.
Well, in the cutback element to James Cook, really stresses the backside of those runs. And so it's been interesting to see how different teams have tried to handle that. I thought Kansas City and New England as teams that have good tackling corners with their ability to kind of insert them into the run fit and really compress and really be disciplined on the backside is critical to shut down or limit, James Cook in the run game. And that'll certainly be an interesting dynamic. One of my matchups when Miami has the ball is Aaron Brewer, the center, against the Bills' second level. I've never seen anything like Aaron Brewer with how he gets into space and how explosive he is and how good he is at connecting with moving targets on the second level and sealing lanes. And, I think a lot about the matchups throughout the years with Brewer at center and some of the releases that he's able to get. And, the Bills do not have very good linebackers in terms of playing through contact. You think about Terrell Bernard as the Mike backer. He's been a better coverage player than he has been this year, but as a run defender, he's more of a trigger, shoot a gap, make a play. When he has to sift through some traffic, boy, things get dicey. And Aaron Brewer can eat him up. And I'm interested to see what ideas the Bills have to maybe limit Brewer from getting off the line and getting into the second level with obviously defensive tackles that have been stressed with their depth. They're playing a lot of practice squad guys at defensive tackles, a lot of rookies at defensive tackle. And so
Jordan Phillips.
He's inevitable. He's inevitable.
I saw him. I saw him and Jordan Poyer out there.
They're both going to be out there. They're both going to play. That's kind of where they're at. So Aaron Brewer against the second level of the Bills defense is something that's going to be critical because we know Miami and their best chance is going to be running the ball. It should be. Yeah. And Brewer's obviously paramount to that.
Brother, you can have the game. Just give me one Jordan Poyer against Ollie Gordon, 1-on-1 in the hole.
It'll be there.
Short-yardage situation. Just give me one.
It'll be there.
That's all I want. You can have the game. Just give me that one time. We're going to get into some keys to victory next here on this crossover Thursday. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, we hope you will finish with us here on this crossover. Stick with us. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being at the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. Might be a little quiet if you're rooting for Miami at Hard Rock Stadium, but Bills fans, if you're going down, I guarantee you could probably find some tickets on Game Time. Let's be honest, buying tickets online can be a bit of a headache. The queues, the login screens, the prices jumping at checkout. But if you use Game Time, it gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You will always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. You can pull up Game Time and in just a few taps, get amazing deals. You talk about getting to some of your favorite games for as low as $100 for the big games on any given week. I love their all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees when you put the tickets into your cart. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Keys to victory. 3 keys to victory for the Buffalo Bills against the Miami Dolphins in Week 10 at Hard Rock Stadium in what's going to be a team that's wearing a lot of red and blue, or the stands that's going to be wearing a lot of red and blue. I saw what the Baltimore game looked like. Tua said after the game, crowd noise kind of messed us up there on 4th and 1 at home against Baltimore. I know how this fan base travels. Go ahead. Keys to victory.
Yeah, I think
Make a lot of noise when Miami has the ball, right?
Probably a nice contingency of people in Western New York that are looking forward to a trip to South Florida here in November. Three things for me regarding the Bills in this game is, number one, don't beat yourself. You know, the Bills, when they have their hiccups against opponents they're supposed to beat, I think the Bills are 9.5-point road favorites in this game. You can't beat yourself with penalties and giveaways. And they've typically been pretty clean, but those moments do come up. And I think that's your fastest way to keeping Miami in the game is penalties. That's put your offense behind the sticks, and giveaways that obviously take away possessions. Number two is you got to start fast and take control of the game script. The Bills, when they've had their most success against Miami in games that aren't as close as they can be, it's because they get on top of them. They invite Miami to a track meet and force Miami to a drop back passing game. And so whatever you can do to get that fast start and get that lead and put Miami in chase mode, I think that's when Miami's at their worst and when obviously Buffalo's at its best. And then number three, a little bit more specific to this matchup, is be ready to handle the blitz. Miami's fifth in blitz rate so far this year. In week 3, Miami blitzed 47% of the time, which is 13% higher than their top 5 blitz rate. And Josh, when was blitzed, he was 8 of 14 for 53 yards and a touchdown. When he wasn't blitzed, he was 14 of 14 for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I have a feeling that they're going to want to get their blitz stuff going. They have extra time ahead of this game to maybe work in some new wrinkles. And I think everyone saw the Falcons game. And it's the challenges that the Bills' protection schemes and Josh Allen had against the blitz. I think there's obviously been a better story to tell throughout the course of the year. He handled the blitz against Spags just fine last week. But there have been some shaky moments, and I'm sure that Miami should prioritize stressing that and seeing what type of chaos they can create.
Yeah, I think when Miami has from Miami's side of things, keys to victory here is you got to figure out how to put a lid on the tight ends in the passing game, which is easier said than done watching Kansas City and Steve Spagnuolo try to do it this past week. But there's been too many incidences this season. Go back to the Chargers game and Oronde Gadsden the second in a big moment. The Cleveland Browns with Harold Fannin in some spots. Mark Andrews in the red zone just this past week on Thursday. Poor matchups, poor personnel matchups when you want to try to bring and facilitate some pressure. You're getting bad matchups with who is dropping into areas that are responsible for the tight ends. And Minkah Fitzpatrick can be a big piece of that. Hopefully Jason Marshall can play this week as a nickel, which would then free them to do some man coverage stuff with Minkah to take Dalton Kincaid and take those assignments. And you're going to take your chances, right? And that's one of the few that you can look at the matchups on the back end and say, hey, if we have somebody that can try to hang with Dalton Kincaid in some big spots when we bring pressure, Minkah's about as good of a choice that they have to take your chances and try to get some wins in that regard. So I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. I would point to overall the tackling. Through the first 7 weeks of the season, the Dolphins were the worst tackling team in football. I mean, they were an atrocious tackling team. It's actually been better the last 2 weeks against Atlanta and Baltimore, and part of that progress is winning at the point of attack and winning at the line of scrimmage. This Bills offensive line has a lot of reps together. They've got a lot of impact. They can create a lot of movement. How it all fits now with Jalen Phillips not being in the picture, I think is massive. But you've kind of started to see Anthony Weaver with a young unit have some things click into place. I'm really excited for a second evaluation opportunity for Jordan Phillips and Kenneth Grant, the Dolphins, Jordan Phillips and Kenneth Grant, for what that play looks like as the second divisional game. This is the first of the 3 repeat matchups against AFC East opponents for Miami this year for a group that's young, and they've needed those guys to take the first 6-7 weeks of the season to kind of click in and play at a high level.
Yeah, 6-7.
6-7. Thank you. Caught me that time.
Well, that was an organic one, dude. I wasn't going to let that slide on by.
I caught you yesterday on NFL scouting. It was a 6-7 swap of picks, and I hit you with it. So
I got it.
Keeping me honest.
Yep.
And then offensively for Miami, run the damn ball. I'm sorry, run the football. You came out and you ran more gap scheme runs against Atlanta than you have ever called in 3.5 seasons under Mike McDaniel, right? And you had rousing success. You go heavy personnel. You are able to kind of change the strength, and you're pulling offensive linemen with 6 offensive linemen on the field because Julian Hill's down. And you kind of have this big matchup opportunity with personnel against a smaller front, and you have success. And Buffalo, they've been more diverse with their personnel this year than what they've been in years past, but they are still at their core, right? A 4-2-5 with Taron Johnson as the nickel player, and if he's healthy to play. They like to play that style of defense. That's kind of their bread and butter and who they have been historically. So you call 20-plus gap scheme runs against the Atlanta Falcons, and then you come out against Baltimore, you call 5 gap scheme runs the entire game. Run the ball, put the 6th offensive lineman out there, play heavy, embrace a clock possession, methodical approach. Don't call a game to score 30 points. If you call a game to score 30 points, you're going to lose by 3 touchdowns, and you're going to be down 17 points at halftime. And you'll be looking at the clock saying, what do we do at halftime to come back from this? And that's when these games between these two teams get off the rails with this guy as the head coach of the football team in Miami, that's what happens, and you pour gasoline on the fire after the first mistake happens and it compounds.
Don't play the game the Bills want you to play, which is that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the game the Bills want you to play. If you're down 2 scores, you still have to run the ball. Again. Yeah, you cannot get away from it, especially with how the Bills rush looks right now. Their pass rush looks with Bosa and Rousseau. They're playing at a high level against, Patrick Ball, I think, has been a nice young player, but at right tackle, Larry Borum, and how the Bills will stress, protection schemes lately with some really creative stuff. Don't get into it. Don't run the ball. And I think that'll give Miami their best chance.
And then you can build your play action passing off of that, try to take some shots to Jaylen Waddle, make sure he gets 10 targets in this game. I think that's the recipe for Miami to have a chance to win. That is going to do it for us here today on the show. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, crossover Thursday in the books. Make sure you come back tomorrow. Joe's got you covered with one more before the game. I got you covered on Locked On Dolphins with one more before the game. We both have our squad shows that go live shortly after the game wraps up. Mercifully, you don't get a lot of 1 o'clock kicks these days, so I'm sure you'll enjoy the chance to go live at 4:15 or 4:30 or whatever it is with Bill's squad, and I got Dolphins squad, and then we'll have our own post-game shows on Locked On Bills and Locked On Dolphins. When we say it is your team every day, we don't just say it, we live it, and we hope you will come back and see us all again soon. Thanks for tuning in here on today's show.